my loves, and welcome back to I'm On Your Side with me, your host, Sierra Boudreau. Happy Sunday if you're listening to this on Sunday or whatever day of the week it is that you guys are listening to this. I do notice a lot of you guys do listen to it on Sunday, so that's usually why I start off by saying happy Sunday. But if you listen to it throughout the week, then I love you all the same. I want to go ahead and get into the episode. Usually I start off with my updates, what am I doing, where am I going, all of that good stuff. But this episode is pre-recorded because I will be in Hawaii or have just gotten back from Hawaii when this episode goes live. So there wouldn't have been enough time really to record between when I came back and when this is supposed to go live. So I'm recording it now. So I don't really have any updates because I don't know what happened yet because this episode is recorded in the past, if that makes any sense. Sure, Alex and I had an incredible trip in Maui. And next week I will tell you guys all about it. The itinerary that he put together looks great. We're going to be doing some hiking, some beach laying. We're going to be doing a long drive that apparently is really popular in Maui. He has some restaurants picked out, all of this good stuff. And so he really took the wheel with planning this whole trip. So I'm really excited just to be along for the ride. We are supposed to get there a little bit early on, I think whatever day we're getting there, Tuesday, but we have to take later flights. And so we're going to get there around 8 p.m. So we're really just going to put our stuff down and go to dinner. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a relaxing 4 days and I can't wait to tell you guys all about it. So that is really the only update that I have. Everything else you'll hear as soon as I'm back. And of course, if you keep up with me on Instagram and all of that stuff, you'll have already seen everything that I posted, everything on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever. I was going back and forth about vlogging, but I decided I'm not going to vlog in Maui just because I really want to be able to be as unplugged as I want to be. And with a vlog camera, you just really can't. Like in order to make the vlog engaging, you have to bring the camera with you. And so I think Alex and I would both just appreciate being on vacation. So that's the plan there. If you're wondering if there's going to be a YouTube vlog, there will not be. But other than that, that's really all that I have. And we can go ahead and talk about what the meat and potatoes of this episode is. Also, did I really just use the phrase meat and potatoes? I feel like that phrase has been outdated for so long. Like meat and potatoes is probably something that my dad would say. My dad also very often says cool beans. Like that's a term that he loves to use when he's in agreement or when he's excited about something. He says cool beans. And so I feel like cool beans and meat and potatoes are kind of in the same realm. And so yeah, I did just say meat and potatoes. Anyway, the heart of the episode, that sounds more like myself, are 5 small changes I made that have changed my life. And I want to share them with you because I feel oftentimes like when we're thinking about changing our lives, when we're thinking about shifting, we think in these really big, grandiose ways and we feel really overwhelmed because it's like, how am I supposed to do all of that? And I feel like sometimes when we think about making these big shifts, it feels like we get decision paralysis because where do we start? And we're seeing all of the options in front of us. We're reading all of these self-help books. We're not even reading, but we're just seeing that we have access to all of these self-help books. We have everyone online telling us what to do, how to do it, where to do it, all of that stuff. We have our friends' advice, our family's advice, our own personal beliefs about what we should be doing. And so it feels kind of like it's really hard to make a decision. And I totally get that. So I just wanted to share 5 really small things that I did that have shifted my life because through these 5 things, I've been able to take bigger steps. And by doing these 5 small things, I think new opportunities opened up for me because I allowed them to and because I was in a place to receive them. And so I want to share them with you. And some of them may feel like you're not ready to make them yet. And that is totally understandable. I just want to give them to you so that when you are in the place of your life that you want to start making these changes, just know that they are there for you and they are quite accessible to you whenever you're ready and willing to use them. And these are things that I have learned through trial and error. And believe me, I didn't just wake up one day and do things and figure this out. I think that it was over time I realized, okay, this actually is quite the small thing that I'm ready to take on. And so now I'm going to see what it does to my life. And if it serves me, then I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't serve me, I'm not going to do it. Just like I was telling you guys in the last episode, I decided that I wasn't going to drink until I was on vacation. And I just wanted to talk about that super quick because I talked about like serving me and not serving me and how I expressed how drinking at one point in my life did serve me. It was fun. It was entertaining. I had a good time with my friends, all of that stuff. And when I say it served me, I don't mean that it served me in any like good physical sense. We all know that alcohol is poison for your body. That's not what I mean. I don't think that alcohol serves me in any way that like actually influences betterment for my body. But I also do think that entertainment and I do think fun do by way give you betterment for your body, betterment for your heart, for your brain, all of that stuff. And I'm not saying it has to be alcohol. More often than not, it doesn't need to be alcohol. Really, actually never needs to be be alcohol. If you want to find fun and entertainment through alcohol, totally fine. But alcohol obviously does have negative side effects. I don't mean to preach to you guys about the good and the bad of alcohol. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand the sentiment that I'm trying to make when I say it served me. I wanted to be clear about that because when I was listening back to last week's episode, I think it came across as if like I was saying alcohol serves me in this grand sense, and really that's not what I was trying to say. That said, I said I wasn't going to drink until I was on vacation, and there's a weekend in between when I said that and when I'm going on vacation. And I think that when I said that, I was like, okay, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to hold myself accountable. And truly it did work. The weekend passed and I didn't take one sip of alcohol the rest of the week last week because I didn't record on Sunday. Obviously I recorded earlier in the week. The rest of the week it passed smoothly. I didn't have a sip of alcohol. I didn't miss it. I didn't crave it. Like, I wasn't reaching for it. And so when the weekend came, I just had some Liquid Deaths. Those are really good. When we were out at the Rockies game, I had a Diet Coke. I saved a bunch of money because drinks at sporting events, concerts, all of that stuff is so stupid expensive. And so having a Diet Coke, I think it was $6, which is honestly stupid for a Diet Coke. I am aware of that. But $6 compared to the $15 to $17 if you want to make it a double, whatever. Like, $6 is more manageable. And I didn't drive because we were downtown and parking there is just abysmal. But if I were going out, like, I would be able to drive myself out and I'd be able to drive myself home because I wouldn't be drunk and I wouldn't need to take an Uber, and that saves money. And so I'm just trying to be more conscious about the ways that I can be more aware of my spending and how alcohol affects my life and when it serves me, when it doesn't. And I'm just noticing that I felt so good after not drinking this weekend. I came home, I did my skincare, my face wasn't puffy, my body wasn't bloated. Like, I felt just totally fine. I felt normal. I woke up this morning, I felt good. I didn't have even the inkling of a hangover. Like, nothing was wrong. I popped out of bed. I made it to my 9:45 brunch reservation, had a great brunch, had great conversation. And at brunch, I wasn't tempted to order a mimosa, order anything to drink, because that just like wasn't what I needed to do, nor was it what I wanted to do. I was just totally fine to have a latte and just enjoy that. I think sometimes when alcohol is in front of us, we think that we're obligated to drink it because other people are drinking it. And I completely understand what that feels like, to feel like I don't want to look weird or I don't want to be uncomfortable. If everyone else is drinking, I don't want to be around a bunch of drunk people and I'm sober. There are alternatives, obviously, to alcohol. I definitely enjoyed a gummy or two when I was out over the weekend. Had a great time with that. I know what my body does. Like, there's no risk of me throwing up. There's no risk. Like, I feel so much better. And so I think I'm going to be implementing that more when I go out rather than alcohol. But as I was saying, I know what it's like to feel like you're surrounded by alcohol and you should just drink it because it's there. But I want to remind you that you don't have to. And obviously what I'm saying right now is for people who don't struggle with alcohol dependency. If you do struggle with alcohol dependency, the advice that you want to listen to and the conversations you want to have surrounding alcohol are very different than the one that I'm presenting right now as someone who doesn't struggle with alcohol dependency or alcoholism at all. So I just wanted to make that clear as well. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an update on my drinking. I feel really good, and I am guessing, obviously this episode comes out after I come back from Maui, but I'm guessing I probably had a couple of drinks, but I am also guessing that I was probably more mindful of my drinking and more mindful of my intake, just knowing how good I felt and how much I really do want to enjoy vacation without feeling sick. And so there's going to be an update on that when I get back, but I'm really guessing that I probably didn't drink that much, and we'll see what happens then. But all that to say, that is my intro. You know what we're talking about this episode. You know how I feel about alcohol right now, and you know the thoughts swirling around my head. And so let's go ahead and get to the 5 small changes I made that have changed my life. First thing that I did that I truly do believe has revolutionized my life, how I see myself, how I see other people, how I feel about myself and my word, is saying no and allowing my no to mean no. Allowing my no to be a complete and a full sentence has truly changed me. And what I mean by that is, like, when somebody asks you to do something, or somebody offers you something, or somebody expects something of you, and you say no, more often than not, I found that because my no never really had any weight behind it, people would ask me again or expect me to do it anyway. And I really struggled because I would say no, but my no would often turn into a maybe, which would often turn into a yes. And then I felt really annoyed because I'm like, well, you guys are crossing my boundaries and my no should mean no. Why aren't you listening to me? But how do they know it's a boundary to cross if I never enforced it? I never enforced my no. And so when people didn't take my no at face value, I didn't really have the right to be disappointed by it because my no actually meant yes more often than not. And so I started shifting that. And now when I say no, I truly do mean no. When I say not right now, I mean not right now. I want to give a work example example, it is busy season in influencer land, as I was telling you guys about last week. And that means a lot of things are coming up at the same time, and a lot of things are due at the same time, and a lot of things need to go live at the same time. Happy summer, And as to not try to spam you guys with too many ads back to back, because I know you don't follow me to see my ads. You follow me because of the information I bring to you, and you follow me because of my personality, and you follow me because you like me. I really do appreciate that. And I also understand that you guys understand that ads are how I often make money, and ads are how I support myself and do the things that I want to do. And that's my job. So I think that we have a really healthy relationship when it comes to ads. I think that you guys support my ads, and I really do appreciate that. That said, I try to make sure that I'm not giving you guys 3 ads a week, 4 ads a week, whatever, because I know that can be really, really annoying when you feel like you're going online and everybody is just trying to sell something to you, whether it's a product or a lifestyle or an idea or a bank, whatever. I mean, I feel like when I'm scrolling on TikTok, or I'm scrolling less so on Reels, but more so on stories, if you follow influencers, you know what it's like to be scrolling, and you can literally count how many ads you have encountered in 5 minutes, and ads even not just being like sponsored posts, but ads being Amazon links, ads being tags, ads being somebody talking about a product or something, ads meaning any of that where somebody is recommending you a product and they are trying to get you to buy it from them or from a company in which they get compensation for it. And so if you like ever just are bored one day and you go on Instagram and you start counting how many ads you get in 5 minutes, your mind is going to be blown. And honestly, you might be a little bit disgusted. The first time I did it, it was like shocking to me. I was like, oh my God. And so I understand that while for us influencers, it is our income, I also think it's our responsibility to not just be selling machines all of the time. I don't really think that's why people follow us. I think that people enjoy buying things from us because they enjoy supporting us, and because we have cute things or nice things or whatever that they may want to. Totally understandable, totally reasonable. But I don't think very many of our followers are following us just so that they can buy things from us. I think that they follow us for better and more substantial reasons. And so I try my best to honor that. That said, if I have a brand saying they want me to go live Friday, and then another brand wants me to go live Monday, and then another brand wants me to go live Tuesday morning, I say no. And I mean no, because that really should not be happening as much as I can control it. Sometimes there are hard deadlines and we cannot work around them. But if I have the opportunity to say no and my no holds weight, then I will say no. Sometimes there are things like that deal with higher ups and with management, so they have to just happen that way. And for that, I do understand the annoyance and the frustration with that. Just believe me, if you ever see me doing ads back to back, know that I tried so hard to space them out, at least a day in between, at least organic post in between, just to give you guys something that's not me selling you on something. And so that's a work example where my no means no. And another one is like if there's a deadline that I genuinely just cannot make. When I say no, I mean no. If I say I need something given to me by Wednesday so that I can record it and get it to you by Monday, I really mean that. If it comes Thursday 5 p.m., well, I'm sorry, that's not Wednesday. And I said no. Making sure that my no stands firm, because that's the only way my no is going to be respected. If I continuously say no and then continuously turn around and do it, then why would anyone believe me when I say no the first time? But I do believe that my time and my boundaries are important, and I don't think that I deserve to have them walked over by other people, but also walked all over by myself. If also in relationships, I think that this is something that I learned, especially after my abusive relationship. Oftentimes I would set a boundary, or I would say no to something, and then he would try to convince me, and eventually I just would say yes. And then I was so upset and I was so devastated and I was so hurt because I knew I should have said no in the first place. Over the weekend, when I was saying no to alcohol, I told my friends, like, hey, I'm not going to drink this weekend. Hold me accountable. Like, I really don't want anything. And of course, they were so supportive, and no one was pressuring me to drink or anything. Like, no one even offered me a drink. It really was so easy like that. I said no, and then they respected my no. And that's a case of really good friends or really good people in your life who listen to you and respect you, because you also have to think about if you are constantly saying no and constantly setting these boundaries and people repeatedly disrespect them, are those people you want in your life? If every time you're saying no, they're saying yes, or trying to get you to say a yes, why is that someone you would want around? Because that person is so clearly not in your corner. And along those lines, when I said earlier that saying no and meaning it has allowed me to reshape how I see other people, what I mean by that is what I was just saying. If I'm saying no and people constantly disrespect that and they constantly try to change my mind, that is not someone I want in my life. I want to be around people that I have to convince that my word is true. My word is true because I said it, and I want people who respect that and who honor that and don't make me feel like I have to defend myself all of the time. The next one, and I think that this one is my favorite one, honestly, because it's a very new thing that I've implemented into my life, and it has been so good for me and so healing for me, and hopefully it is the same for you. Obviously, we spend a lot of time online, on TikTok, on Instagram, and there's a little treat culture, right? Like the jokes about getting a little treat, Lord knows I make my jokes and talk about a little treat all of the time. We've started to confuse, I think, self-care with treats all of the time, and we think that self-care is just constantly saying yes to ourselves, even if that yes isn't the best for us or the healthiest for us or the most sustainable for us. We just don't like to say no to ourselves anymore because the culture on the internet is like, don't say no to yourself, give yourself everything you want. That's self-care. And what I learned recently is that sometimes the best way I can care for myself is actually saying no to myself, which is different than denying myself of something. I'm not denying myself of the root thing that I'm trying to get out of the situation. For instance, I saw this thing on Reddit and it really resonated with me. Somebody was saying, yeah, at the end of a hard day, I could drive through Chick-fil-A, I could drive through McDonald's, I could drive through wherever, like any fast food restaurant, pick your favorite in there, and I could get whatever I want on the menu, and I can go home and I could eat it all because that's a little treat and I deserve it and I worked hard for it. A really shitty day, and so I should just have it. But knowing that if I do that, I'm actually gonna feel like shit even later in the day, and why would I make my already hard day worse by making my body feel bad? When I read that, I was like, oh, actually, just because I can doesn't mean that I should, because sometimes the actions that I'm trying to use to soothe myself end up hurting myself, and that's not what I'm in the business of doing. I'm in the business of listening to myself and honoring my body, and sometimes to honor my body, to honor my heart, to honor my mind, the answer needs to be no. And I'm not denying myself the base level there. If the base level is enjoyment or pleasure or fulfillment, I can find that in other ways that actually do bring that to my life and don't bring that mixed with pain, mixed with disappointment, mixed with discomfort, just for the sake of saying that I had it and just for the sake of saying I never say no to myself. Learning how to say no to myself has healed me in many ways. When I say self-care is saying no, I don't just mean physical things, tangible things. Sometimes self-care is saying no to a behavior. Sometimes self-care is saying no to an action, something that you've done because it was either a learned behavior that you picked up from your childhood or something that you just started doing one day and never stopped, whatever it may be. Sometimes you have these behaviors or these actions that actually are not beneficial to yourself or the people around you, and you know that. Like, you're very aware of that, but you do it anyway. Say if your vice is lying and you're like, well, lying is just something that I've done for a very long time and I'm caught in this web of lies and I don't know how to untangle myself from it. First of all, the truth always comes out. So there's really no point in lying like that. But I understand that sometimes you feel like your only option is to lie. Reminding yourself that sometimes self-care, the way to relieve that from you, because it's bogging you down and it's making you feel shitty and uncomfortable and upset all the time and anxious all of the time because you're caught in this web and network of lies. Saying no to that behavior, saying no, maybe I've lied in the past and maybe I'm not in the place in my life to untangle that web of lies yet, but going forward, I will not lie about new things. I will not lie to new people because I want to move forward in an honest way. And by doing that, by moving forward in an honest way, maybe there's going to come a day where you will look back and untangle the web of lies of your past. I can only hope that for you because I can't imagine what it feels like to be caught in this network of lies and you don't even know where to begin. And I'm not saying you have to go through and sit everyone down and say, this is what I lied about and this is the truth and this is how I want to fix it and I'm deeply sorry. Like, while one day that would be very beneficial for you and the people you love, and maybe you're going to get there, if going forward is all you can do right now, then just go forward. Saying no to behaviors that have harmed you and the people that have loved you and supported you is really, I think, one of the most special things that you can decide to do, because it is so much easier to just say yes. It is so much easier to just continue it. I have this really bad habit of stonewalling. I learned about that in the this book that I'm reading where I get really emotionally overwhelmed by various things. Maybe it's not even I'm overwhelmed with my relationship or my friendships or my family. Like I'm overwhelmed by whatever it may be. And so I put up this emotional wall and then I completely shut the other person out. And I know they're trying to help me and I know they're trying to get through to me. And I have a really hard time opening up those walls and letting somebody else in before I'm, done doing the internal whatever I'm doing, letting the wheels turn and turn until I come to a resolution or come to peace within myself. I just get really cold. And that's something that I have started saying no to myself on. Like I am not saying I'm never going to do that again, because that is a learned behavior that I picked up and carried with me for years and years of my life. That said, the people in my life don't deserve that. If there's a conversation I want to have, then I will have it. But stonewalling isn't the way to go. Saying instead, hey, I need a minute. I need space. I need a couple of hours. Let me call you back. I need, to go on a walk. And when I come back, we can have a conversation. Or I really don't want to talk about this at all. And whatever conversation that needs to be had, I'm going to have. But putting up that wall is not acceptable and it's not beneficial. And it really just makes me feel more isolated. And it's an isolation of my own making. And so that is self-care to me. Saying no to behaviors that leave me feeling lonely, isolated, scared, vulnerable, all of those things, and vulnerable in a bad way. All of those things I'm just not allowing myself to do anymore. And like I said, it's not an overnight thing, but over time I've gotten better at it and I'm really proud of myself for that. And this next one really goes hand in hand with what I was just saying, my refusal to stonewall and being open and willing to have conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, is telling people how I feel when I feel it. If somebody hurts me or disappoints me, it is my obligation to tell them. It is not their obligation to try to figure me out. And that's something that I've also learned, a bad habit of mine that I kind of started to solve a few years ago. I am much, much better at this in my mid-20s than I was, say, in my teens and early 20s. Now, if somebody upsets me or disappoints me in some way, I'm going to tell them, because I truly believe that the preservation of the relationship depends on communication and honesty. And if I am harboring resentment, you guys know how I feel about resentment. I talk about it damn near every episode. You know how I feel about resentment. If I'm harboring resentment, it is only hurting me. My resentment does not fester in other people. My resentment festers in myself. And so if something happens, if something comes up, it's not even that it has to be this long, drawn out negative conversation. And I've gotten so much better at reframing things from you pissed me off and you did this awful thing and so now I'm upset. It's really learning the language that you use to invite somebody else into the conversation that really, really matters. Instead of saying you pissed me off, saying, hey, I'm really hurt by this. That is different. Saying you pissed me off puts them on the offensive, because pissed off is a really loaded term compared to I'm hurt. It's not about them. It's not you language. It's me language. I think there's a better term for that actually, but that's what's coming to my mind right now. Instead of saying you did this, it's I feel this, because then it lets them know the root of what they did, rather than just like saying you did this negative, nasty action and now I'm pissed off at you and I don't want to talk to you, but I'm telling you this so that you don't talk to me, and all of that stuff, which is like the drama and the frustration of, I think, what comes along with like being younger, just not really knowing how to communicate. But these days, if something hurts me, it's maybe I need a minute. Maybe it's like, hey, I need a minute to process this, but I am kind of frustrated by that, or I am kind of hurt by that, and I want to come back to it later. Or it's a lot easier too. I do believe that if somebody really, really does hurt you in a deep way, communicating over text very rarely communicates the tone that you're trying to convey, and it almost always comes across more angry. Even if you load up the text, I'm not angry, I'm not pissed. Like, even if you load up the text with phrases like that, it still comes across that way. What I've learned is easier for me sometimes than calling, even though calling or being in person is like the best way to resolve these things. Sometimes you're not ready to do that, or just like not in the place to do that. Sometimes you live in different places or on different schedules. A voice note is great because you can write out what you want to say like it's a text, but you can read it and it can really convey your emotion and how how you really hear it or how you really feel it. And the person hearing it can connect deeper with it because they know your voice, they know your tone, they know your inflection. It is really hard to say this text reads really angry when they're hearing your voice and you don't at all sound angry. You know what I mean? Telling somebody how you feel when you feel it in the negative way really, I think, resolves a lot of problems rather than sitting on it and then waiting until, like, say 3 weeks later, something else comes up. They do something else that really hurts you. And you're like, well, I'm upset by this. And I'm also upset by this thing that you did 3 weeks ago. And I want to bring that into the conversation. That's not necessarily fair, because how are they to know that that thing 3 weeks ago upset you if you didn't communicate with them that it upset you, especially if you weren't even passive aggressive at all? Not that you should ever be passive aggressive, but if you just acted as if everything was fine, how are they to know that that upset you? And that's not their obligation. So bringing it up at a later date when they didn't even know the original offense was offensive to you is really unfair and can put someone deeply on the offensive. And I know that's the negative side of it, but telling someone how you feel when you feel it can also be the positive side of things. I don't think I've ever told you guys this, but I told Alex that I loved him first. We were laying in bed one night. We were still doing long distance, but he would come fly to me every week, the sweet angel that he is. Laying in bed getting ready to sleep, and it was completely silent in there, and we already said goodnight, and I was awake and I could still feel that he was awake, and I was like, hey, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm really nervous to tell you, but I feel it, and because I feel it so strongly, I want to say it. And he was like, okay, what is it? And I was like, no, never, like, I can't. And obviously at this point he knew what I was trying to say. And he was like, no, I want you to tell me, what is it? And I told him I love him. And as soon as I said it, it was like this feeling of relief. It's like now he knows, and now he can do with that what he wants. And even if he doesn't feel it back, he knows that I feel it. And who doesn't want to hear that they're loved? You know, I would always want to hear that I'm loved if somebody feels that way. And so I told him, and I just felt so good, and I felt so happy, and he received it so well. And then he goes on this whole tangent about, like, the timeline of our relationship. I think we said it between 6 to 8 months. I can't remember the exact date. 6 to 8 months into the relationship, we said I love you for the first time. So he goes into this whole thing about the whole experience of our relationship, and he's like, and I am so in love with you. And it just, like, hearing that back, like I said, who doesn't want to hear that they're loved? Hearing that back and knowing that I said it because I felt it, and just us getting to have that moment was so special to me. And if I just waited and waited, who knows if we would have had that special of a moment and that special of a telling. I will always remember that just as one of the proud moments I have with myself, because I had never told somebody that I loved them first. And by being able to do that, it was like, my feelings are my feelings, and my feelings aren't dependent on your feelings, and my expression of my feelings aren't dependent on the expression of your feelings. It was one of those things where, like, I said it because I felt it, not because I thought he was going to say it back, but him saying it back was really just the cherry on top. So if you're feeling something and you're feeling it strongly and you're feeling it deeply, telling people how you feel when you feel it will only lead to more resolve. That said, if you find that you are too angry to say something in the moment, that is understandable. When I say in the moment, I don't mean like that millisecond it happens, you express it, because sometimes if you express things that quickly, they don't come out the way that you mean them, and you wish you said something else, especially if it's in a heated moment or a moment of anger. When I say telling someone how you feel when you feel, I mean after you've processed it, after you've sat with it for a second and you are sure that that's how you feel and you're sure that that's what you want to say, that's what I mean. I don't just mean like, flying by the seat of your pants and just saying whatever I don't think that's the phrase, actually. I'm saying a lot of weird phrases, meat and potatoes at the beginning of this episode and then flying by the seat of your pants. Like, I don't think that phrase makes any sense now that I'm repeating it. Flying by the seat of your pants. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research on that, because that actually doesn't sound like a real phrase. That sounds like a phrase that actually does exist that I took and butchered. All of that to say, I just want to make sure that you know how you feel and you mean what you say when you say it, but it is always worth it to express how you feel, even if the other person isn't going to receive it well, or even if the other person doesn't want to hear it, or even if the other person doesn't match your feelings. In this one, I talked about a little bit on TikTok in last week's You're Gonna Be Fine This Week, but reminding myself that it is often not about me has shifted everything for me. I believed for a really long time anyone's actions towards me were actually about me. And it caused me a lot of frustration and a lot of sadness and a lot of anxiety because I felt like I had to put on all of the time so that they would never get mad at me or they would never feel any negative feelings towards me, which was really exhausting, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I'm sure you don't even have to imagine. Like, I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm talking about and have felt the same way. But when I realized one day that not everything is about me, not only did I feel this really big feeling of relief, but also this like internal deep cringe for all of the things that I said and all of the ways that I reacted because I believed that somebody's actions were about me. For example, we're going to get so vulnerable in this moment. I was friends with this girl when I first moved to Denver, and we like kind of were off and on friends in the way that like we were really close in some seasons, and then like we didn't really talk for a little bit, and it was like she would get other friends or like she would rekindle with some other friends, and she was kind of a person who like had one person or had a group of people at a time, and that's kind of like who she surrounded herself with. Totally fine. I get that, and no hard feelings towards that. Some people are just like that. But in the moment, we were in a situation where we'd gone to the Taylor Swift concert together, and then I didn't hear from her for like 3 months maybe. And yes, I could have reached out. Like, absolutely, I could have reached out, but I felt very much like there was a shift. I felt like something happened. And I do believe that if you get the shift in energy and this feeling that something is wrong, you're probably right more often than not. That said, she didn't tell me something was wrong, and so I wasn't putting an effort into like trying to evaluate it. I had other friends, I was living my life, whatever. But one day I was thinking about it and I got really upset about it. I was like, why hasn't she reached out? I feel really upset. I feel slighted because I was really there for her in this situation that she was going through with some other friends, and I felt like I poured a lot into our friendship. So I sent her this very long text. Hey, I'm really disappointed and hurt to not have heard from you. I feel like I poured a lot into this friendship, listed out examples of ways that I poured into the friendship. It was like a lot. And I kept saying, you know how earlier I was like, no matter how many times you say I'm not upset, not angry rather, it still comes across angry. So many times in this long ass book of a text message did I say I'm not angry. And while I reflect, like, I don't know that I really was angry. I think I was just really, really hurt. And I think I was quite sad, but I don't know that I was angry. But I kept saying, I'm not angry, but I'm not angry this. I listed out all of the reasons that I was upset and disappointed and hurt and blah, blah, blah. And I sent it to her. And I sent it because I was in the headspace of her not reaching out to me is about me. She doesn't like me. She's upset with me. I've done something wrong and she's not telling me, so I have the right to be upset back. And it was so selfish because now that I'm in a different place of my life, I realize that if somebody's not reaching out to you, someone you considered a close friend, you haven't heard from them in 3 months, why is my first reaction, oh, they're mad at me, so I should be mad at them? Why is my first reaction not, I need to check on them, maybe they're going through something? And that's the phase of my life that I'm in now. But my God, do I wish I had that foresight and that understanding a year ago when this all went down. And I look back on that, I just feel so much embarrassment and so much shame, which you guys know I already struggle with. We talked about it last week. But I feel so much shame because how selfish is that to say, I haven't heard from you and it must be because of me. And so I'm going to turn around and I'm going to make you feel bad about it. And when she reached out, she did reply. We ended up just not rekindling our friendship, but she kind of let me know her side of things. And she was like, I've been going through stuff. It's been a really hard 3 months for me. And even in that moment, I didn't read that and think, oh, I should have reached out about that first. I was like, oh, that's an excuse. I was just in this very clouded judgment space of my life. And I'm so glad that I'm out of that space now. That said, I just feel a lot of I feel awful about that. And I really should have handled that in a different way. But that's maturity, right? That's growing up, and that's surrounding yourself with different people that allow you to become your best self or just a better version of yourself. And the friends that I have now, that is not the way we would communicate, and that is not the way that we would do things. And also going back to my earlier point, if you have something to say, maybe a voice note would have been better. If I called her or been like, hey, let's get dinner. I want to talk to you about something. That would have been better, but a text just wasn't the way. I felt the need to apologize, and I felt a lot of shame, and I think I was harboring that shame, and the best way for me to release it was to apologize, and I feel so much better even though we still don't have a friendship, and that's okay. And the last one that I want to share with you guys is that it is actually okay to do the things that I'm good at and to not do the things that I'm not good at. I struggled with that for a long time because I think that growing up, especially in school, it's like even if you're not good at math, you still have to do math. Even if you aren't good at whatever task, you still have to do whatever task just because you're a kid and people are telling you have to and you don't really have control over it. The older that I got, the more I realized if I'm not good at something and I don't enjoy it, it's actually okay to outsource it, or it's actually okay to say, I don't want to do that anymore. I told you guys that straight out of college, I worked in finance. And one day I realized, oh my God, I fucking hate finance. Like, I don't want to work in finance at all. I want to leave. And so I left. And yeah, I put some time under my belt there. And yeah, I invested time into that company and, whatever. But ultimately, I didn't want to do it anymore because I didn't like the job that I was doing. And I do not have to put on a face for anyone. I actually don't have to suffer so that people think that I'm good. I don't have to suffer so that people think that I'm brave. If I want to leave, I'm allowed to leave. And that we often suffer for too long because we want people to be proud of us. We want people to think that we're good and we're thriving and all of that stuff. But I actually don't think that I need to prove that to anyone. I think that my goodness is inherent. And I think that my thriving is based on me doing the things that bring me peace, joy, love. I'm going to do those things. And if something doesn't bring me those things, I'm just going to leave it behind. And that doesn't make me a quitter. It doesn't make me bad. It just makes me someone who is strictly in the business of honoring myself. And so I'm going to keep doing that. I'm proud of that. I've learned in the world of influencing, I am really good at coming up with creative ideas. I am really good at talking to you guys. I mean, that is my bread and butter, like talking to you guys direct to camera, us forging a relationship like that. That is what I'm good at. That's what I enjoy doing. And that is like why I built the platform that I have today. And so when people ask me, like say a brand comes to me and they ask me, hey, can you do this quick cut edit with all of these transitions and yada, yada? Well, the answer has to be no, because that's never what I've done organically. And so that's not something I'm going to do for your ad, because that's going to be extremely difficult for me to do because I don't have the skill set of doing it. And it's not going to be something difficult where I get the reward of having done it. I just get frustrated at the end of it because I spent so much time and so much effort into this and it doesn't even feel authentic to me. And so I say no in situations like that. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm not going to push myself out of my creative comfort zone. I'm going to try new things. I'm going to explore new things. I'm going to have fun with the different things. But if it's something that genuinely is outside of my skill set, I'm not going to do it. And with the podcast, I love to edit the podcast. I find that I'm good at editing the podcast. YouTube videos, I don't love to edit and I'm not good at. So I outsource that and that's okay. And this is spilled over into other aspects of my life. And an example, I think that sometimes people date people they don't really like, but they date people they don't really like because they think, well, it's probably not going to get better and they like me and they put a lot of time and energy and money into me. And so it's just the kind thing to do and the fine thing to do to say yes. But first of all, using someone as a placeholder is never okay. It is never kind. It is never gracious. And it only ends up hurting both parties exponentially. If you don't like someone, you don't have to date them. And if you don't love someone, you don't have to continue being with them. Just because the option is there doesn't mean you have to take it. If it's not something that brings you closer to the goal that you have in mind for what you want your life to look like, you can just leave it behind. And I know that sometimes a lot of us in households are just learned at some point in our lives that we need to be the best at everything. We need to excel at everything. And it is not okay for us to ask for help or say no to things and that we should just take what's given to us and run with it. We actually don't have to. And I'm so glad that I learned that lesson, that I actually don't have to. I don't have to prove that I can to anyone, because just because I can doesn't mean that I have to. And just because I can doesn't mean that I should. And that doesn't make me lazy. It doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make me anything simply for saying no to the things that don't serve me. So that wraps up the 5 small things that I've implemented into my life that have truly changed my life. And I hope that you can take something and allow it to resonate with you, or take something and build upon it and that resonates with you. I hope that when you listen to the podcast, you allow yourself to put your own experiences into it and your own life into it and make of it what you will, so that it really fits with your life. Obviously, when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking mostly about my experiences or my friends' experiences, people close to me, that kind of stuff. But there's no way way that I can know all of you personally. And so I hope that you continue to do the work to make it fit your own life. But those are the 5 things that I've implemented, and I'm really proud of them, and I really love them, and I really wanted to share them with you guys today. And I'm so thankful that you guys would listen and check in week and week out. And I am so thankful to have you here, and I will see you on Instagram. I'll see you on TikTok, and I will come back next week with all of my updates and all of my news and whatever topic we're going to be talking about. So I'll see you then, and I love you so much, and I'm on your side.